Hi there, I'm here at Studioilse with Ilse Crawford, and we're just going to hear a bit about the LDF project that you're involved in this year. So could you just explain a little bit about Studioilse for people that aren't familiar?
Well, the studio's been going for just over 10 years, and our focus is to make spaces that in some way support, sustain and bring out the best in us. And we work across private space, public space, from small to large. So we do product, and we're currently working on an airport lounge. So,
Wow.
you know, very diverse, but held together by this very strong idea, really, of bringing the human into space, into design.
Cool. And could you explain a little bit about the brief that you were given for London Design Festival? So it was from Airbnb?
Yes. They obviously are opening the doors to so many people's homes and are fascinated by the consequences of that, by the way that we are sharing, if you like, private space. So the brief is to understand the difference between a house and a home, and to, in some way, shine a light on those design and environmental changes you can make that make the difference between a house and a home, what makes us feel at home. Because a home is such a basic human need. And I'm not talking about the sort of fancy home. It's not that. It's a feeling. It's a very primal need, a universal one, which is really about having a place where we can be ourselves, where we can be free. And also it's a practical need. It's a place, obviously, to refresh, repair, excuse me, recharge. It serves both functions. And I think to be homeless is a terrible thing.
Yeah. So for the actual space that you're creating, what kind of elements are you going to be incorporating? Is it going to be multi-sensory, or what kind of ideas are you thinking about at the moment?
We want it to be really almost an investigation into what home is. So we've asked many, many people the things that for them are home. And, you know, some of them are pretty grimy, some of them are pleasurable, we all know. But together, they add up to a feeling of home, a collective feeling of home. On top of that, we've made a smell, which with Azzi Glasser, the perfumer. And that, I think, is quite an interesting smell. It's not necessarily a glamorous smell. It'd be interesting to see what you think of it.
Yeah.
And also the sounds, because after all, we're very physical beings, and you know, something can look great, but if it smells of sort of air freshener, then the bubble is burst. I went to a hotel the other day and something had gone horribly wrong with the drains. And, you know, frankly, it destroyed the whole thing.
Yeah. Cool, I can't wait to see it. And in terms of when you kind of approached the project, what were you thinking about this kind of changing perception of what a home is in this day and age?
I think, obviously, there is something monumental happening in the sense that there is this big shift between what's private and what's public. The border between the two is blurring. And that, I think, is super interesting, because we're now expecting to be at home in public space, and we're also prepared to share our private space. But it doesn't mean that the two domains are no longer either private or public. It's a different perception of them, and I think it opens all sorts of interesting opportunities, because how can we feel more at home in public space? You know, it's not now so demarcated, it's not so controlled by others. We can now stake a claim really over public space and the converse of that is we're now much more comfortable, we're much more trusting about our private space. You know, we're much more prepared to let people into our private space. And people are also equivalently much more comfortable to be in people's private space. They're fascinated by it, fascinated by each other's identity and open to that connection. So I think design has a lot to learn, but also a lot to contribute to that new world. And, you know, obviously it's a world that in large part has been facilitated by the digital revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting to think of it in the context of this broader cultural change, how design is going to be affected or influenced.
But the mistake is often when people talk about the web is, oh, everything will be digital. But actually, I think everything creates its equal and opposite reaction. And of course, the opportunities that come from it are actually, as far as I can see, the opposite of that.
Absolutely.
That, you know, the very universality of the digital basically means we can be more human. The more virtual we are, the more physical we want to be.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to see the project, and it's going to be on during London Design Festival in Trafalgar Square, is that correct?
That's right.
Great, brilliant.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ilse. Thank you.